Welcome to the premiere episode of It's a Life Thing, Bridging Pain to Purpose, featuring your hosts, Benita Santillanes and Madeline Figueroa. For our premiere episode, we're pleased to be joined by producer and comedian Michael Kendo, therapist and professor of social work Katrina Balavlenkov, and our special guest author, artist Angel Rodriguez Sr. We're streaming on Instagram and YouTube. Like, follow, share, and subscribe. Welcome, everybody. How's everybody doing today?
Doing great. How are you guys?
Good. Bonita, take it away.
Okay, thank you. And welcome to our first podcast episode, Break the Silence, Real Men Talk. This episode is really special to us, not only because it is our first episode, but most importantly, we are going to be talking about a topic that doesn't get much attention, and that is mental health from a man's experience and perspective. Angel Rodriguez, with his book, his name is Suicidal. We will be openly discussing the dark clouds and unspoken words that challenge and sometimes consume our lives. So we welcome our guests and online viewers and listeners. Yay!
Woo!
So I wanted to ask you guys, this 2025 is upon us. What good things have happened to you in the last 8 days? Real quick.
Katrina,
I got invited to be on this.
Yes. That was my thing too. Be invited on this, and we're really excited. Angel?
I second that. It's a pleasure and an honor. It really is.
Mike?
Yeah, I have, first of all, thank you guys for having me. Thank you guys so much for taking this bold step and creating this platform and to really shine light on something that is very rarely spoken about. But in the last 8 days, it has been a joy to go to my messenger box and see 12 people who are questioning or challenging their relationship with alcohol.
Wow.
So I put up a post on January 1st, and then all of a sudden my box, 12 people and possibly another 13 as of today. So that's really good.
Wow, that's great news.
Yeah.
And Maddie, what about you?
For me, it's been the experience of getting to work with you on this project with the support from Michael Kendo. He brought us this project at the end of last year. We just looked at each other, we ran with it, and I'm excited about being able to do this and bring this to all the viewers that we hope to get as we continue to do this throughout the rest of the year.
All right, well, Maddie, you take it away for right now.
I will. Thank you. Katrina, welcome to the show. I wanted to ask you, from a therapist's perspective, can you help us understand and our listeners understand the difference between mental health versus mental illness? And as a therapist, what types of things do you look at to figure out how to work with someone through a situation they may have?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the question, right? So I think of mental health, really, we all have a mental health and we all have a physical health, right? And some of us are doing better physically. Some of us are doing better mentally, right? When we think about some of us have those aches and pains in our body, sometimes other people just have those kind of aches and pains in their brains, right? So when we think about mental wellness, we're thinking about really this holistic space of where our body and our brain align. And looking out into the world, we feel a sense of accomplishment and ease. We know we can go out there and do things, right? Because I think so much of mental health and so much of therapy is this concept of hope. Yes. And if we have hope, we can get through pretty much anything, right? So when you're working with someone, helping them to identify that future thinking, that space where they can see things are going to be okay. And when we talk about mental illness, what I really feel like we're talking about is this concept of sometimes our coping mechanisms are just overwhelmed. And that can show up in a variety of ways. And luckily, as therapists, we have tools, right? There's quizzes we can take that assess people for depression and anxiety and PTSD, right? There is this book that we use called the DSM-5, and it has a list of all of the diagnosable mental health conditions. And using our quizzes and using our conversations, we can help find the recipe that's right for you. And I really think when I think about mental wellness, that's really what it is finding connection with that person, figuring out what's going on, and then building that recipe for success together.
Great, thank you. Mike, from a standpoint of being a producer and a comedian, one of the things that we really appreciate you for is the levity that you bring. I'm sorry, I'm having problems with this, so bear with me as I'm learning how to navigate.
Okay.
There we go. Sorry.
That's okay.
You add a lot of levity, and we follow you on Facebook and everything else. One of the things that we've noticed and that we really appreciate you for is the fact that you post on a regular basis something about mental wellness. You post about alcoholism and being in sobriety. What are the reactions that you have seen since you started posting, especially from a male's point of view, if you mind sharing those with us?
Yeah, no, not at all. And first, and again, thank you so much for having me. It's a very important issue. So I have been posting actually since the pandemic began, because that's when I started to notice quite a lot of. There was a lot of conversations about people in my industry and in my community who had had some serious bouts with mental illness, a couple of suicide attempts, and regrettably one suicide. And so that at that point, I'm like, man, I've got all these followers, I've got all this attention, and if I can get 2,000 likes when I post about a food, or I try to post something funny, then I think I've got a captive audience. Let me use this audience for that. To try to send the message, at least send the message that at some point there's got to be some level of hope, because I did not want to send the message that I had any answers. If I may, I want to just tell you that recently, the way I quit drinking was I stopped drinking for dry January 2 years ago this week. January, at the end of January, I said, man, I feel pretty good. I'm going to try February. At the end of February, I said, man, I feel pretty good. And by May 1st, I kind of felt like, whoa, I'm not even recognized. I've lost, first of all, my blood pressure stabilized, my insulin resistance stabilized. Everything had just reshifted. And I'm like, oh, wow. So when I talk to people about drinking, I don't demonize alcohol. I talk to them about my 19-hour day. And when they ask me, what about the 19 hours? Well, here's how a typical Friday night would have gone for Mikey O. All right. It's 6 o'clock. I'm getting ready for a show, but I got a pregame, so I got to get a couple of shots. Right. Bam. I get to Joe's. What's up, man? What's going on? Hey, get them around. Get them around over there. What are you drinking, Papa? I got you. What are you drinking? Get the girls a drink over there. Come on, girls. Come on. We got to do a shot. Let's do a shot. Showtime. And then starts the show. Oh my God, the show's over. And all of a sudden, all those drinks that I bought start coming back. Oh, hell no, we got to do a shot. Get a shot over here. Hey, let's get a shot. Boom. Now it's 10 o'clock. Now the show's over, but we got to go to the after party. So where are we going now? Let's go to Enye. We got to go to Enye. We got to tear it up. Let's go. Mimosas. And I mean, not mimosas, but mojitos and more shots, right? And now it's 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. Wait, I got another spot we got to stop by. Bam, let's go to that spot. Boom. Oh, hell no. 2 o'clock in the morning, we got to get those burritos going, right? Okay. Hell no. Who's in on burritos? Let's go. So we go get the burritos, right? And bam, now it's 4 in the morning and you finally lay down, right? And now you wake up at 11 o'clock and you check your phone. Oh, no, I was supposed to pick up my son and take him somewhere. And then it's my sister calling, yo, you forgot to get the Medicare to get your sister down the stairs to get her to her appointment. Oh no, it's 1 o'clock. Bam, now it's 2 o'clock. Yeah. And you go into that post-drunkenness depression that is not clinical, but induced by your what you just put in your body for 19 hours. Well, here's what happens. I started at 6 to 6 in the morning is 12 hours. 2 p.m., right? I mean, 6 to 6 in the morning is 12 hours. 6 in the morning to 2 p.m. is 8 hours. 8 and 12 is 20.
Yeah.
Now do that times 4 days a week and take away $1,000.
Yeah.
And so when I talk to people about it, that's when I was like, yo, that is what people are responding to. That is what people on social media are responding to. They're not responding to go to AA, go to therapy, check yourself into a clinic, drink. They're responding to that experience. Yo, wait a minute. What? I was with you.
Yeah.
And so for me, I've got this platform. A week doesn't go by that somebody doesn't contact me and say, what treatment center did you go to? I didn't go to a treatment center.
Mm-hmm.
Katrina, you can relate to this. I always get asked the 4 Ds. Papa, you quit drinking? Yeah. Did you get a divorce? Diabetes? No. Did you get a DUI? No. Right? What happened? It was time to go.
You
Just
forgot,
made it
did
clear.
somebody die?
Yeah. No, well, that's exactly right. That was the 4 Ds. It's the 4 Ds. But the thing is that, so this is a platform. Now, again, I don't demonize it. I'm gonna be very honest with you. At the cost of my health, I'm just telling you the way it is, and I'm very careful when I talk about this, but at the cost of my health, I had an amazing time.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. No, I'm serious. I mean, but at the cost of my health and at the cost of my mental health, for a person, a Puerto Riqueño that comes from a history of diabetes and heart problems, high blood pressure, and congestive heart failure, time to go, right?
Yeah.
Well, that is it. We have a platform. We can use it, but it is difficult to have that conversation with men.
Yes.
Right.
And but I will tell you, out of the 13 people who have contacted me in 8 days, one is a woman and the other 12 are men. And
That's
and I'm
good
proud
to
of
know.
them. I'm proud of them. And I don't tell them, I don't preach. I just say, hey, I'm proud that you did this, because I would have never reached out to anybody on social media and say, yo, I need help.
Yeah, that's true.
That's good.
I never did it.
Right. Right.
And that's something that's something that we had talked about.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike, off the air, but we've talked to you, Mike, about, and also with Angel, that there's various ways that men deal with mental, I don't want to say illness, but like with things going on in their mind. Some may go to drinking, some may go to other things, gambling or whatever. And when Angel brought his book to us, or when you introduced Angel to us, actually, and I started reading the book, I was like, wow, this is something that we need to really share. And I would like to present a question to Angel. So I'm going to read the back of your book, okay, real quick. You wrote in the back, life can seem so impossible to navigate for many of us. We tend to deal with it in different ways, which is what Mike had just said. Many decide to end the hurt and pain of the world's predicaments by ending their own lives. The greatest tragedy is someone not knowing how precious they are. In these pages are the dark attributes of suicidal thoughts and face of suicide. I was running from it until it caught me in the alley and influenced me to put a gun to my own head. When I read that, I was like, wow. So I wanted to ask you, Angel, could you tell us what was going on in your life and in your mind that brought you to that point in the alley where you had the gun and you were willing to end it for yourself?
Wow. It's actually not even hard to remember, because it's something that stood with me for all my life. This was actually late 80s, maybe the start of the 90s. Mikey O touched on it indirectly, because he spoke about alcohol. Mine was drugs. I was going through a lot of internal things at that time, but most of it was my own making.
Yeah.
I joined a gang when I was early. I didn't want to join a gang, but living there, I had a choice to make, and I joined a gang. With that came along everything. That came along the drugs. That came along the drug use. That came along the drug sales. That came along the womanizing. Um, so as years passed on, I knew I didn't want that, and I was married. I was married at a young age. I had, at that time, I believe my 3 kids were born, were the most precious things in my life. But when I go home, I'm a dad, and I'm a loving dad. When I was outside, I was another character. I was this gangbanger. I was this, and I was fighting these. I call them demons because it was torture. That's why the title is His Name is Suicidal, because to me it was a person. We just don't see it. And at that time, what drove me to the alley, I remember the way I drove there. I remember the alley. It was all planned out. I was actually using PCP at that time. PCP is a narcotic that it's hallucinated. It can literally take you away from this world, which was why I started using it. It was the reason I used it. It wasn't to get high. It was just to escape what I was going through internal. And I say a lot of it was my making is because what I was doing to my ex-wife at the time, my wife, I knew I was hurting my kids not being home for days, and those things hurted me a lot. I just didn't know how to stop. I knew it was wrong. So suicide ideations I've had prior to that. It just, I noticed at this time, coupled with my pain and the drugs, I just felt it was the easiest way. And I think at this time in the alley, it was relevant. It had to happen. It was planned. I had the plan. I gave things that I loved. I gave them away. I knew the place I was going to go. I even parked in that alley because I was from that neighborhood. I knew no cars passed at that night through there. I brought a slow jam. I remember the taste back in the days of a slow jam because I knew that slow music was going to start making me think of the people I love, and it was going to start turning something on inside of me that I hated, and it'll be easier for me to take my life. That is what brought me to that alley. That is what put the gun in my head. Was that it was something internal, and I feel dissatisfied that I don't have a complete answer to pinpoint what it was. But I can say I knew what I was battling, and it was the drugs. It was the issues that I myself brought. It was the dark cloud that I mentioned in the book. Rather it was college, rather it was trying to work. And every time I did something good, either the gang life came back into my life because I was too positive, or some just seemed to happen. And I don't know, when you mix something with that type of narcotics, it's just a mixture of an extreme poison. And yeah, that's what led me to the alley, was the drugs coupled with my inner pain.
Wow.
Now, do you mind if we go a little deeper? Because
Please.
it goes in the beginning of the book. You were talking about growing up in the neighborhood and, being a kid and wanting to be a baseball player and everything like that. But there was a part on page 36 where you said, I hated myself. Even as a kid, I blamed myself. Could you expound a little bit on what that is referring to?
Like you said, baseball was my dream. Baseball and writing. When as a kid, I used to write a lot, but I love baseball. If you wake me up at 3 a.m. and say, let's go play ball, I'm there. Baseball diamond, when I get into diamond, everything around me, I don't think, it just felt like heaven when I was on a diamond. But again, I didn't have the option. I had the option to play in one gang neighborhood baseball or where I live at. There wasn't, so I didn't have that choice. That choice was taken at an early age. Hating myself, I don't remember liking myself growing up. I don't. I remember liking myself. I don't remember. I was never this cool kid. I was always this dirty kid with uncombed hair, going to play baseball with the same uniform on, without even getting it clean, probably for weeks, probably. So I wasn't a cool kid. It was something I didn't like about myself as a kid, and I take it. I'm sure Katrina probably would have better answer, but certain things that happened to me as a kid, even though I didn't, to this day, I try to not say, I blame myself for a lot of things. But I just didn't like myself much. I don't know why. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I can mention certain things, but there was a hate in me that I knew. It's like when you hate a person. I don't hate no one. I can never use the word hate, but when you dislike somebody, you know you dislike a person, and I felt that towards myself. Just a lot of things that was going on. You know, I knew it was wrong womanizing. I knew it was wrong being with different women. I knew it was wrong selling drugs. I knew it was wrong gangbanging. And I knew I come from such a beautiful, caring family that my grandparents that raised me would never, ever. You know, I used to always question myself, how can I live with a king and a queen and be raised by them and still act like a peasant? Because that's what I felt I was. And maybe that's had so much to do with it that I knew. I can mention one quick moment when I joined the gangs. They were asking me, the same guy, for weeks and weeks and weeks, and I would deny, no, I'm cool. And one day we smoked weed, and at the time I don't talk much about gang, but at the time, to get in the gang, you have to get punched in the chest 50 times. And remember, we were smoking weed in the hallway. He just started punching me. And once he got to like the 15th punch, he said, man, we're gonna need a few more. You're in. And I just stood there, and he did. But on the 50th punch, I thought of my grandmother, because I knew from that moment on, I not only changed my life, but I changed hers. I hated myself, and I hated myself a lot. And I think that's why I hid in drugs. I hid in, you know, you. It's like when you laugh at someone, when someone makes a joke of someone, and we shouldn't laugh at them, but we'll jump in to laugh because we don't want to be embarrassed. We just want, I guess that's what it feels like. I just entertained everything I was around because I didn't know how to kill off myself. And my only way was that physical way. Mentally, I wasn't, and it's hard to say mentally, because even today, if I see a psychiatrist, I'm scared to say that, because I'm not a Unabomber in the making. And I'm not,
Right.
it's just not that. I don't have the words for it. Yeah, I did. I remember I did hate myself. I didn't like myself as a kid. And I think that brought a lot of anger. It brought a lot of like overly protective to my own kids, especially my son. You know, and I'm extremely sorry for that. Extremely.
You mentioned that about your grandmother. In the book, you talked about the great relationship that you had with her and with your grandfather. But I want to read something to you that you had said about your dad on page 19. You said, he is a lonely man, and I know in his own way by these calls, he is letting me know he's sorry for every wrong he did in his life. Even though he doesn't verbally say it, I know it's his way of showing it, and I accept that. And preface to that, you were talking about how you realized that your father had did certain patterns that you are now doing. Do you see that happening still?
I do.
What was your
in a way.
relationship with him now?
Yeah, I do. Well, my father never raised me. He was just him and my mom divorced. He was abusive verbally and physically, and him and my mom divorced. I think when she was pregnant with me, or when I was a couple years old. So I would only see him probably a max of 2 times a year where he picks us up. He lived in Connecticut and Freeport. And when me and my sister went to his house, it was only for like a weekend or 3 days a week. But he was never there. He was always out working. So we went with our stepsisters from the year. Our relationship was never close because we never talked. There was no emotions, nothing. It was the most we said was, ¿Cómo está? Te voy a buscarlo para. That's it. It wasn't no. So growing up, I didn't have a dislike for him because I didn't know him. But as I've learned growing up, when he went to prison and certain things he was going through, it didn't come into my head until I got older now. And I started seeing stuff that I was doing that I started seeing that he was doing. And then I started realizing that today we talk now for the last few years. He calls me, or I call home once a month. And it's only a quick 10-minute conversation. ¿Cómo está? ¿Cómo está, pai? A bendición. And, just because I've learned that I don't want to hold him accountable for his past, because I realized my past was almost similar. And I only learned that as I was growing up, that I see my life and I thought about his life. Do I excuse it? No, I don't excuse his, like I don't excuse my wrongs. But I do realize that I see his little phone calls, I think that's him saying sorry. The same way I tell my son sorry by when I text him or when I go to the house, order a pizza or something. It's hard to, my sons and my daughters, especially my sons, they don't hate me. And I think I've always said, I am so proud of them because they have a reason to hate me. You know, I cheated on their mom for so many years. I had kids from so they had that reason, and not once have they ever cheated me. Treated me in no disrespect, not one. So you know, I do see that pattern. I do. I think my father had mental health issues, but he was Puerto Rican, old type. There's no such thing as, you know, go see a psychiatrist. There's no such thing as none of that. Don't cry. He was that type of man, and we knew it. I was afraid of him. Even the little times we spent together, I was. But I do see a pattern of myself and my kids in the sense that when I speak to them, I speak to them more with making sure I don't say something to hurt them. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to outstand the boundaries because they're older, they're married, they have the house. But I still show them I love them. I love my kids, but I see the patterns.
So do you ever, like with your dad right now, have you guys ever had a conversation, like a heart-to-heart conversation? I know with women, we're able to sometimes express that a little bit easier, but being a man and then having a dad that has those same patterns, has there ever been a time where you guys talk, or how is that addressed between your relationship?
It really isn't. It isn't. Him and my sister's more like my sister, like you said, I guess because being a female, daddy's girl, it's easier for her to tell him. My greatest accomplishment with him, funny as it might sound, is that years ago I started telling him bendición. I've never ever said that to him, and that little word alone was a big accomplishment because we don't have an emotional tie, but I love him. That's my dad. But my father was my grandfather. You know, my grandfather raised me. But again, I respect my father. He's my dad. If I see him, if he needs a place, of course I'm there. The phone calls mean a lot to me, as I'm sure it means to him. And I know he's getting older, he's getting sicker. But as far as a tie, like emotional tie, well, of course I'll miss him if something happens. But no, we don't have like a personal connection.
Yeah.
Never.
So, Mike, I'm going to ask you a question, and then Katrina, I'm going to ask you one next, okay? Mike, do you notice that, or have you had this experience as well growing up?
Oh yeah, I had a complicated relationship with my dad as well. I mean, you know, I didn't have an abusive relationship, but I had an absent relationship. I didn't have my dad was not an angry dad at us, but he was an absent dad. If it wasn't working 12, 15 hours a day, gone, physically gone, he was gone definitely, you know, as a emotionally nurturing dad, as well as a dad that had an excuse to be gone because he was working. The question then becomes, you know, the difficult part becomes acknowledging that for me.
Yeah.
Acknowledging that, understanding not to hate him, and coming to terms with the fact I didn't like it, but there are parts of it I do understand. I had a sister that was severely disabled. My father, no English. My mother, no English. The United States of America, 1950s, 1960s. No mental health services for my sister. No services at all for the disabled. No services at all. So I try to just understand for a moment. Here is a guy that had a daughter that was in desperate need of medical care, and he could not communicate that. How frustrated would I feel today?
Yeah.
Right.
And the problem is that there was nobody there to say to him, yeah, but don't take it out on your kids that are okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm trying to tell you?
Yeah.
And so I forgive him, but it did hurt.
Of course.
You know, it did hurt. And he wasn't a good person to my mom. He was in the end, but in the beginning, he was not. And then again, how much of that do I want to take on? And by the way, the best bumper sticker I've seen in the last couple of years is when you quit drinking, you realize why you drank.
That's
and that
really
bumper sticker messed me up. I wanted to find that car and crash into it. Because that was it.
Yeah.
Then you start to say, okay, I get it now.
Yeah.
It's the triggers that make us change what we know is a right versus a wrong behavior.
Yeah.
It is literally
Mhm.
what we use to cope instead of facing it and
Yeah.
actually coping with it.
Yeah.
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 A lot of that then, and and again at that point, it's almost like there's no band-aid.
Yeah.
You've got a cut on your finger,
Yeah.
and we are going to douse you with salt.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
I can
And-
imagine the feeling of that, not being able to express that. You know what I mean? To have
Yeah.
a voice, or really to have the words to express,
Yeah.
Right.
you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
No, that's it. We covered it. I mean, the bottom line is that now again, I mean, I try to have as many. He'll tell you maybe too many conversations about the way I feel with my son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I we have a little joke in the house. I love you. Sometimes I don't like you.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. It's true.
And
You know what?
Yeah.
In those life lessons, they'll appreciate when it registers, when it
Absolutely.
applies. They'll be
Yeah.
like, Dad's on
Yeah.
my shoulder. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, because but again, also not overdoing that
Yeah.
Mhm.
and forgiving myself and giving myself a chance. Here's what I'm trying to tell you. Like, don't question so much
Yeah. Don't
how
overthink.
you are doing with your kids.
Yeah.
Give yourself a break. Do the best you can and give yourself a break. Number one, it ain't easy. Nobody's had it easy in parenting.
Yeah.
No.
So try not to beat yourself up, but just stay aware that there's certain things that are just not necessary to do.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Thank you, Mike. Katrina, coming from a therapist point of view, do you notice that when you talk to your clients that there is a pattern in their lives? And when you do notice that, or if you do, what do you think the main theme is in a majority of them?
I think it's so interesting, and thank you to the men on our call for being so open.
Yes.
But what you guys are describing actually has a terminology called adverse childhood experiences. We call them your ACEs. We started with our ACEs as our adverse childhood experiences. Now we also think about the positive and our positive childhood experiences. But when I go through this list, and I just want to do this real quick for you to think about some of these, that when we think about our ACEs, or our adverse childhood experiences, right, they can lead to chronic health problems like diabetes, asthma, cancer, not just mental health conditions, right? It can result in having a complicated relationship with cigarettes or drugs or alcohol. And when we think about this, there's actually a quiz that we do called the Adverse Childhood Experience Scale, where we ask people to go through some of those experiences. So we talk about abuse, we talk about neglect, living with a family member who has a mental health or substance use disorder, witnessing domestic violence, sudden separation from a loved one, including incarceration, poverty, racism and discrimination, living with violence in our community, right? And when we look at the number one, childhood protective factor, and in this quiz, one of the questions did it ask, did you feel that no one in your family loved you or thought you were special? Like, wow, that's really powerful. Did you have someone who thought that you were special? And when we look at the number one coping mechanism, and everybody can find that person in your brain, is you need one person who gives a damn about you to be okay. Right?
Wow.
You need that consistent person. And it sounds like grandma was that person. Right. For Angel. Mikey O can probably think of his person too. Right? Because when we think of, why do people use drugs and alcohol? Because it feels good. No one's signing up to take COVID tests.
Mm-hmm. Right?
So what we're doing with is when we take away this positive, when we're taking away this out that makes us feel connected to people and we're having a good time and there's this energy and We don't have to be fully present with where we are, right? That's easy. That's fun. It's taking that away and still being okay with yourself that makes it hard.
Yeah.
Right. So if we've had these history of experiences, it's not that everybody who has adverse child experiences is going to have a physical illness or a mental illness. It's just saying when we talk to people, we got to be aware of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Because what happens to us in our first 18 years really shapes our future development. Right. And I always say what happens to you before you're 18, you have no responsibility over what you do with it after 18. You know, that's you. That's your power.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Well, that checklist or the thing that literally, as you were reading it, sounded like if someone was doing it and they had a checklist and you're checking off so many boxes. I can only imagine the person that's realizing that list was crazy. Bonita, go ahead.
I have one other thing to add.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
When we look at our ACEs, we say over 60% of adults have at least one ACE.
Yeah.
And 16% have 4 or more out of those 10 ACEs.
Wow.
So we're talking about a lot of people, and a lot of men in particular, carrying pain with no one to talk to it about.
Wow.
Yes.
Good segue.
That is very well said. So, Angel, after hearing Katrina mention those ACEs, you wrote a lot in your book that we could go on for like an hour and a half. But is there something that when she was talking, because I noticed as I was watching you, as she was talking, you were like, yep. Is there one thing in particular that triggered for you when she spoke?
You know, while she was going down the list, it seems like all the above. It was like, wow, wait a minute, she's speaking about me. And then the last one was to have that one person in your life. Obviously, it was my grandmother. But, you know, and it's a question in me that I'll probably never know because I come from such a loving family. You know, I had uncles and grandfather were my heroes. My sisters, my aunts, you know, it was we're a close-knit family. So I had people that guided me. I had beautiful people that guided me, but I don't know why that I let myself. I have all the above checked, which is scary because as she was saying them, I was like, oh my God, wait. But it resonates. You start understanding through a professional, you start learning, okay, so these are these problems that I was having. And I know comes from somewhere, but I always wondered, how can I come from such a good family and still lead myself to dumb things?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, what?
No, go ahead.
Oh, when in your book you talked about the relationship that you had with your wife. There was a part in there on page 52 and 53 where you had to confess to your wife that you had an affair and another child. And instead of her, you anticipated her to reject you, right? You anticipated her to just curse you out and leave. But instead, she embraced you. And she wanted you to stay. You eventually left to go. But I want to talk about that moment. How did you feel? How did that change for you when instead of her rejecting you, she really embraced you during that time? Because you said that she must have seen in your eyes what was going on.
Yeah, and I still remember it. That was the day that actually was leading towards the alley. It was just part of I knew she needed to know. I knew she had an idea already of the baby. I went and woke her up. She was actually sleeping downstairs with my sister because we weren't talking for like 2 days. And I remember standing in the back porch when I was leaving. You could see it in her eyes. She knew something. I was going to do something. She knew it. We were already together, a decade. So she knew the pain. But she put her own feelings aside because she was thinking of me and almost backfired me because I was hoping that she gets mad at me. I was hoping that because I was already feeling so guilty. So I preferred her calling me names or something, and she didn't. And it felt almost like a lifeline, I would say. It was unexpected. I didn't deserve it. I deserved it to be called names. I deserved it to get kicked out. And again, it builds that hate in you more because you tell yourself, these are the people I'm hurting, the people that care for you, the people that love you. And we can go fast forward to today, to some years ago. I didn't have, I'm engaged now, but I used to not feel that I deserved that because I didn't deserve, I need someone to love me again because of what I've done in the past. I'm grateful for my ex-wife. She's remarried, and I'm grateful that happened because she deserved that. But I'm also grateful that God gave me another chance for someone else to love me because I don't. And I told Cookie before, I didn't plan this. I didn't think I'll fall in love again because what I've done in the past. So it does affect everything from that moment, rather it's from the Porsche, rather it's from the alley. It affected relationships and affected. So, but what I do today, I still think of those things that I've done to my ex-wife at times. If I see me and Cookie arguing about some things, I think sometimes of the wrong that I did so I can know how to make it right now in this relationship. But yeah, that moment, it just self-preserved more hate towards me in that porch when I see my ex-wife, my wife at the time, showing me that compassion when I knew I deserved no less than get kicked out.
Okay. So this question is for Angel and then Mike. And then I have one for Katrina the time is going fast before we have to start closing down. So Angel, so right now you've gone through a whole lot. Both, like mentally going through things in life and things like that. Have you noticed, how can I say this? Have you noticed now that is it easier to express your feelings now? Or is that something that is still working on?
It is definitely the latter. I'm still working on it. A lot of things have become easier. Even if I have to write it on a letter and give to a person, I'm more open-minded. But by no means am I completely wide open. Where I still see myself, and it's like Katrina explained 2 things earlier that it's like, wow, I have to be in one of the categories because sometimes mentally I don't feel good. I really don't. And, excuse me. And it has nothing to do with relationships or nothing. It's something just in me. I still find myself. I've been diagnosed with PTSD. I've been diagnosed with depression. I realize that. I get that. But sometimes you don't know how to handle it. Sometimes I see myself in a mix of a whole world still alone. And again, it's not relationship. It's not friendship. It's none of that. It's just something in me. I still fight, and it's not suicidal ideations. I feel different sometimes. I do, and it's concerning to the point where I don't have an answer for it.
Mm-hmm. I remember you said in the book that sometimes when your feelings are when you have to have a conversation, sometimes you just shut down because emotionally it's too much.
Yes, very much. It's so easy. There's times that I shut down. I completely shut down. I can literally be in a room because like it is emotionally, especially as for a man, we're not accustomed to open up. We're just not. And that's like Mikey said with our dads. I think that's why it made it easier to have compassion for them, even though we knew like my dad, I knew what he was doing. But it's just not easy. It really isn't.
Yeah. Mike, the same question for you.
Yeah, I mean, so Angel, I just want to tell you, man, I number one, I'm a big fan of yours. I'm super proud of you, man.
Thank you. I love you, man.
To put what you put in that book, I've never seen that come out of the mouth of a Latino male.
Yes.
Not in the city of Chicago. Maybe it's come out in books in other parts of the country, but I've never seen that come out. There's a lot of story in there. There's a lot of pain in there. And what makes that book important for our community is that book is really many, many, many cousins and friends and aunts and uncles that we knew The players in that book are all the people from the neighborhoods that most of us, and so I'm proud of you, man. And I want you to know one thing again. For the, I am absolutely not an expert at any level at mental health. But what I do want to share with you is this, real quick. Sometimes since I quit drinking, I have felt weird too.
Mhm.
And what I have realized is, no, hold on. There's nothing wrong with me. It's just that I'm not used to this emotion right now.
Mhm.
You follow me? There's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with me. It's
Oh,
just
yeah.
that my natural reaction to this would have been different. And now I can't recognize myself because that's not my reaction. So again, I'm not an expert. I'm just telling you, think about that for a moment.
Mhm.
If you're behaving a certain way, then you start to feel weird because you only had one way to respond to that in the past.
Mhm.
I'll let Katrina earn her pay. But what I'm saying is that's kind of like, so, one of the things is the number of people who've come up to me and say, man, I don't know that I know of anybody that was living a more perfect life than you were. And
Wow.
I get that a lot. And so I've had an amazing run for a guy that started a hobby that turned into a business that turned into, a platform here in the city. And uh, 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 but I'm not sure uh, the without sounding preachy, without sounding like,
This is real talk.
no, absolutely, absolutely. But I also, I don't want to scare anybody away that may be, thinking about making this change. When you question your relationship with alcohol, it's people, places, and things
Yes,
Yeah.
that now you got to address, right? And so opening yourself up, uh, you live with the fear that a person is going to say, "Look at this guy." The biggest partier in Chicago is now telling us not to party. The guy that had no restrictions and telling it like it was is now, so it's very important to understand. And here's the bottom line. There's a lot of work to be done.
that's right.
Yes.
Listen, 16 years, the first cocktail, got it? 16 years, the first cocktail. And 40 years later, the last cocktail.
Wow.
I don't know the answer. I don't really know how to behave. I'll tell you the funny ass story right now. So a year ago, a guy said, well, you may want to try therapy. Give it a shot just to work out some of this stuff that may be buried in there. Sit down. And I said to the therapist, good luck. I'm not answering any of these questions. Because I thought that the therapist was supposed to look at me and say, okay, this is what's happening. This is what's happening. When I found out that I had to talk, me, the great Mikey O, lady, there's something wrong with you. If with all these degrees on the wall, you can't figure me out. I got to help you figure me out. You follow me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work that has to be done, and digging for a Latino male, which is the best part of what my funnest part has been, that the reality of it is that we don't talk.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with us. Okay. There is we are almighty and all perfect. Okay. And nene de mama's boy. Okay. Could do no wrong, could be no wrong. And the reality of it is we're walking around here with these heavy ass backpacks.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Yes. So Katrina, from what you heard from Mike and from Angel, and those that could be listening that maybe identify with that as men, where they are like, well, I don't want to talk. I don't want to, I have all this stuff. No one's going to understand, or whatever is going on in their mind. From a professional point of view, what would your advice be, or like the first step to take in that? You want to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to recognize two people in the chat. So Jennifer, thank you so much for sharing your truth and being honest with us. I appreciate you putting yourself out there. And Maricela, when you talk about people in schools are suffering from ACEs and they blame it on bad behavior, right? That's one of the places where we start, right? We don't focus on childhood mental health, and we could have a whole separate conversation if we wanted about how we treat boys in school, and especially black and brown boys in school, that leads to what we call the school to prison pipeline, right? That we don't teach kids conflict resolution skills. We don't teach young men how to talk to themselves, right? It's much easier, or we think about it much easier, as that dynamic between, a female therapist and a female client, and kind of talking about that. But we don't teach those skills to our young men. And if we're not teaching it to them the same way we're teaching it to our young girls, yeah, these are going to breed things as we come up. And it's not uncommon that people get to me and they don't want to talk. I used to, before I had my own private practice, there was a time when I did court-mandated substance use treatment for people who had had a minor possession charge, or their first DUI, first DWI, and they got to do therapy in lieu of, and if they completed therapy and didn't reoffend for a certain amount of time, they would get probation before judgment. So that would fall off of their record. So there was a lot of incentivization for people to go to therapy for 26 weeks. And a lot of people couldn't do it, right? They knew what that other end was. They knew this was their out. But to be vulnerable in front of me,
yeah,
right? To have to put yourself out there, to have to open that stuff, to have to defy this stereotype that we put on men, and these expectations that we put on men on what masculinity looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We're not giving people that opportunity to talk. And sometimes, I'd say, okay, we're not going to talk about substance use. What do you want to talk about today? And when you get there, what I talk about, and some therapists like to jump right into the deep end of the pool, and I don't think we can do that. I think we have to start in the shallow end. And that just is called something like building rapport, connecting with each other,
Yes.
trusting with each other. I use humor in therapy all the time because we have to be able to laugh at ourselves, right?
Yes,
I'm
yes.
hysterical. I don't know if I'd be up to Mikey O standards or Matt standards, but I think I'm pretty hilarious.
I think you're hilarious too.
Yes.
But really thinking about that, like teaching, and Mikey O talking about talking to your kids, Angel talking about talking to your kids about feelings, is so important. And when, the right time to get in therapy is always now.
Yes.
Right? We can wait for that perfect moment or that New Year's resolution. But, if October 27th, you're at the grocery store and you pick up an avocado and it reminds you of somebody, and all of a sudden you're like crying in the produce aisle, call. If you're just frustrated and angry and you don't know why and you don't know how to let it out, call. Mm-hmm. There's so many resources. And I think one of the things, and I know we have to get ready to wrap up, is there's this great BetterHelp advertisement. And it's this guy lifting weights, and he has like this weight stuck here on his chest. And like 4 or 5 guys come by and like, bro, can I help you? Like, man, do you want a spotter? And he's like, no. Right. And it's like being ready to let someone help lift that weight off of you.
Yes.
That's a good one.
That's a really good example. Thank you so much, Katrina, for that. You talked about vulnerability, and I know that might be a word that makes men cringe sometimes, about being vulnerable and stuff. But I want to just say thank you to Mike and Angel for being vulnerable today, for talking so candidly. I mean, I wish we could go on, more longer and get more deeper into things, but I want to kind of close out with a couple final questions. One being for Angel. You wrote so much in this book, and I tell you guys, get the book, read it. There is so much. I'll tell you what, I will buy 10 books for myself, and any male that wants to inbox me or inbox It's a Life Thing that would like it, I will send it to you because I think you need to read this. So I will do that. But also, Angel, if you could say something to someone watching that is going through the same situation that you and Mike were talking about, and you could talk to them man to man, what would you say to them?
The first thing I would like to say, it's the number 988, which is a suicide hotline, and I hope people, that's confidential, so whoever needs to call, please call. To any man out there, you know, we're men. Me, Mike here, we're men. We're no different. In my case, we're considered a cop-out when you have any suicidal ideation. But I know it wasn't only in my case. I know there's thousands. In fact, men are almost 4 times higher than women to think and commit a suicide. So I know there's a lot of men hurting. So to any of my friends that are out there, any men that I know or don't know, please check yourself where you're at. Mikey mentioned it earlier. We're never going to be perfect, but we have to start learning how to think of ourselves in a different form. We do have a weight since we're born of the machismos, and that's okay. But I need you guys to know that there's pain in us as a man that sometimes we can't speak to no one. But find yourself someone. It doesn't matter who it is, if it's your sister, your mom, your buddy, your homie, or a phone call, 988. If you ever had the thought of suicide, if you ever have the thought of depression, please use that number or use someone. Because I can guarantee you, life is so much better with you in it. Regardless of what you're going through, regardless of what you think, life is so much better than what you in it. And if you give yourself another day, you have a better chance to make it better for the next day. So please, man, you're more important than what you think in your worst days.
Mike?
Yeah. So you know, I just got to tell you that my experience has been in the last couple of years an amazing experience. It has not been easy, but it's been an amazing experience. Here's what I want to tell you. It sucks. It sucks. Sucks. But ask yourself, am I doing something fun or am I doing something to fit in? Why am I here? Right? Why am I here? Why am I doing this? I'm glad that I have never in my entire time of drinking or doing drugs, I was never the person that said, come on, you got to do this. You got to try it. It's amazing. Come on. No. When somebody told me they didn't want to drink, I just kind of felt like more for me. It was okay. Let's do this. Right? So, but my suggestion is that, fellas, it's completely okay to pull another brother to the side, unlike what, you know, our traditions and our Puerto Ricanness and our Latino-ness has taught us. It's completely okay to put a brother to the side and say, yo, man, I'm not in a good place today. I'm not in a good place today. And the people who've come forward and said, hey, I want to know more about why, you know, how you quit drinking and what you did and da-da-da-da-da. And my answer to them is always the same. I just questioned my relationship with alcohol. I started to realize that most of the bad things that happened to me in my life happened while under the influence.
Yeah.
Most of the bad things that have happened to me in my life. And thankfully, this is a painful one. This is hard to think about. It's hard to think about. It's hard to say this. I easily could have killed 100 people over 40 years of my life in drinking, coming to and from Joe's on Weed Street on the Kennedy, completely smashed, seeing 6 lanes.
Yeah.
I didn't kill anybody and nobody killed me. How that happened is beyond me. You got to start questioning that relationship.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you think you're happy and you're good, then listen, drink away. When you see me, you know I'm going to buy you a drink. I got no problem with that. But I want to just let the brothers know, the men that are watching this know that it's okay to question that, and it's okay to say to yourself, well, maybe it's time to go. And we are Angel and I guess at this point, Angel, we're kind of lucky, but don't nobody on this freaking thing think for 1 second that Angel and I have been cured,
Right.
have been saved, that we're fully recovered, that, oh my God, the Santos are here. There's 2 Santos. These guys were amazing. We need a statue of them. Get rid of the lions at the Art Institute and put these guys there. They're amazing. There's a lot of work that goes on every single day, and every single day ain't easy. Okay. All right. I was about to whip some ass today. Right. Simply over somebody, leaving juice out and not putting the cover on. Right. I'm saying. So it's okay. It's okay not to be okay. Peace out.
Right.
Yeah.
There we go.
Thank you, Mike. Katrina, any final thoughts or comments of what you've heard these amazing men say to us today?
I got
Yeah,
a question for you. Hey, Kat, hold. I have a question for you too. After that thought, piggyback off of that. As a therapist, what should someone ask themselves to feel that it's okay to pick up the phone and reach out to a therapist? So Benita's question and then mine, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think if I have, keeping it quick on 2 things, if you're 6 feet above ground, it can always get better.
That's right.
Right. Every day above ground's a good day.
Right. If, and the other thing is check on your friends. They may not know how to come to you, but if you go to them, man, you seem off. Hey, it's been rough. I know so-and-so has been going through. I just wanted to check in on your friends. They'll probably be really grateful. You could, change someone's life without even noticing it, without knowing it, just by saying, hey, how you doing, man? Right. And waiting for that real response. And I guess, and I'm thinking for people who want to know if therapy is for them, there's so many kinds of therapy. There's equine therapy. You can ride horses to feel better, right? There's talk therapy. There's music therapy. There's art therapy. So if talk therapy doesn't sound necessary right up your alley, start with another modality. If you don't think you're ready to commit to therapy, try life coaching and pick one problem you want to work on, right? But there's never going to be a better day than today.
That's right. That's
Yep.
right.
Great.
So, okay, final question, and then we're going to have to wrap up. And I'll go first, is briefly say, what is something that you took away from our conversation today? I'll start with me, then we'll go to Mike, and then Angel, Katrina, and then Maddie. I took away a sense of knowledge and gratitude. I'm going to get emotional. That I am so grateful for. To hear the vulnerability of a man that I admire, which is Mikey, and a man that I just met that I feel like I've known for a long time. I thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for being as honest and open with us today that you have been, because I know it takes a lot to come and speak about certain things publicly. So I just want to say thank you. I have such a deeper understanding now of the men in my life that I'm friends with or that is family. And I've come away with a different way of maybe approaching or noticing something and approaching them in a way that they don't feel, that they feel loved and they don't feel like I'm being pushy. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Mike, anything?
I'm a know-it-all. I didn't take anything away.
Oh, of course. Angel.
Let me tell you.
No, Mike.
Let me tell you. I'm really happy that this is happening. I really am. And here's the thing. We see people that we that we are exposed to on a regular basis, that we think for whatever reason in any role that they're in, that they're this almighty and superior, that they don't have any problems or pain, that they don't suffer what I suffer. How lucky are they that they live these perfect lives?
Yeah.
Right? I always say we are all perfect on social media. We are all amazing. We all have amazing lives. We have amazing Christmas trees. We all make amazing turkeys, right? We have amazing everything. Okay. And for those of you that are on social media, don't judge where you're at or who you are by what you see on social media. None of it is true.
Yeah.
Okay. Last thing is, how did I end up going to therapy? Here's how I ended up going to therapy. The guy, right? I was telling him a story and it was a funny story. And I said to him, this is the guy, this is a friend of mine that I was talking about not drinking. And I said to him, oh my God. And then I almost cried like a little girl. And he said, or you can cry like a little boy.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, bingo.
Yes.
So that's what I took away from today, is just a reminder. I am doing great, and even when I'm doing bad.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Angel, thank you, Mike.
Oh, I thank you ladies, first of all, for this beautiful podcast. It's a pleasure again. Katrina,
Angel, are we being paid?
With our love and affection.
Right.
But what I took out today is that it's still, there's great people out here. You know, you guys through this, there's always going to be pain. There's always going to be suffering. But there's still great people out here. Just from our little conversation, this hour-long thing that we just had shows that the compassion is still there, regardless how bad this world gets, or for many people gets a little harder. You know, there's still compassion and there's hope. And as long as we have people that talks about it and are willing to go out there and put themselves out there, you know, people's going to get help. Because we're not going to know. We're not going to know who's listening that's going to get help from this. We're not. But we do know that there's people suffering. So, you know, I took away a lot from here. And I took away from the compassion you guys have. It helps me, believe it or not. It helps me a lot just to be, you know, and I took the humanity, which a lot of times we miss out on social media. So thank you, all of you. Thank all four of you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Angel. Katrina?
Yeah, my takeaway would just be the sense of connection that was established here today.
Yeah.
Between the five of us, between the comments and the people who are listening in, to the people who will watch this, you know,
Yes.
and I hope that they feel the same sense of connection. But this was 68 minutes of unity.
Yes.
And that's a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Maddie.
Yes. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. I'm going to say that for me, one comment that I'd like to make was I came across a reel on Instagram that said, if you have a friend and you don't feel right, reach out and give them ask for 8 minutes of their time. And if you can give them 8 minutes of your time, then you don't know what you can accomplish for that individual at that point in time. They might be going through something, and just 8 minutes of distraction can save them. So that kind of goes along with what Angel said towards the end, which was program in your phone 988. 988 suicide hotline. 3 numbers can save your life. It might just be a situation where you just need to get talked off of a ledge. 988 can save your life. So that's what I took away from today. I'm going to read. Did you have anything else, Benita? Were you going to say something?
No, go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to read a poem that I came across that kind of fit with today's show. I'm going to run our credits. And thank you to everyone who liked, shared, followed, who commented, who tuned in. Thank you so much for supporting Bonita and I. We really could not have done this without any of you, and we look forward to bringing you some more interesting subjects. So here we go. Ernest Hemingway once said, "In our darkest moments, we don't need solutions or advice. What we yearn for is simple human connection, a quiet presence, a gentle touch. These small gestures are the anchors that hold us steady when life feels like too much. Please don't try to fix me. Don't take on my pain or push away my shadows. Just sit beside me as I work through my own inner storms. Be that steady hand that I can reach for as I find my way. My pain is mine to carry, my battles mine to face. But your presence reminds me I'm not alone in this vast, sometimes frightening world. It's a quiet reminder that I am worthy of love even when I feel broken. So in those dark hours, when I lose my way, will you just be there? Not as a rescuer, but as a companion. Hold my hand until the dawn arrives, helping me remember my strength. Your silent support is the most precious gift you can give. It is a love that helps me remember who I am, even when I forget." Thanks
Yes.
very much for joining us on the show. Bonita?
And that is a perfect poem for this. And I think that that's something that we could go into 2025 with, is really to just be present with each other, really check in with each other, and check in on each other. But that's it. We are done. Oh my God, I'm so excited. Thank you guys so much. Angel,
friends.
Mike, Katrina, thank you guys
This
so
was great.
much. We love you guys and look forward to our second
Next one.
podcast coming up next month.
Outro.
Awesome. Great job.
Bye, guys.
It's a life thing, bridging pain to purpose. Your hosts, Bonita Santillanes and Madeline Figueroa. Thank you so much to our guests on our first podcast, Michael Kendo, producer and director, our therapist and professor of social work at Columbia and New York Universities, Katrina Balavlenkov, and our special guest, Angel Rodriguez Sr., author and artist. Don't forget, his name is Suicidal. If I had done it, I'd have been a memory. Streaming on YouTube, Instagram. Like, follow, share, and subscribe. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.